For netball news, views, and interviews, tune in to the 3 Feet Radio Show with Ben Carbonaro and Luke Herbert. Visit 3feetradio.com.
Welcome, listeners, to this latest installment of the 3 Feet Radio Show, in which we have a returning guest in Adtya Bee of the Netball Education Trust. But before I get to our guest, I need to introduce my esteemed co-host and noted netball journalist, Ben Carbonaro. How are you today, Ben?
Yeah, well, Luke, good afternoon. Thanks again for the opportunity to chat some netball. And I must say, too, it's getting towards the business end of the Commonwealth Games in the netball. It's certainly very exciting.
Oh, look, it is. And just briefly touching on that, we're recording this on the 31st of July 2014 for the record, so the semis at the Commonwealth Games netball haven't been played yet. But, yeah, the semis are certainly going to be interesting. But we have to shift back to our guest, though. So, how are you doing today, Dee?
Oh, very well, thanks. Always a pleasure to be back on the show. I've lost count how many times I've actually had a chat with you, so that's always a good sign.
It is. It's always good to have a chat amongst friends. And just to get us started, when we last spoke to you, you were preparing for this year's edition of the One Nation Netball Cup. How did everything pan out?
Oh, quite well, actually. Even the weather was benevolent. We had a bit of thunder shower on both days, so the heat wasn't killer like last year. It's a big issue because we play in the middle of summer. So it being rain, it rained both nights actually between the tournaments, so we were quite well off. Great fun, actually.
Good to hear. It was great fun. Would you like to touch on what sort of fun things occurred during the tournament for us, Aditya, please?
Sure, of course. If you look at the sporty aspect of it, we had 10 teams that played, and about 4 of them were really competitive. There was a 4-way fight for the title, really. Last year's champions got pipped in the final by just 2 goals, so it was a really good match. It was kind of a revenge match because the host had lost the year before, but this year they won. Apart from that, having 150 girls and boys having a blast over a weekend with you is the thing you take home more than the netball itself. We really had a great time. This year was much bigger than last year. More teams, more kids, more volunteers actually, and more fun. And all the ingredients added up to having a great time. And we can't wait for next year. Everybody keeps asking me when's the next One Nation Cup. Looking forward to that already.
And just sticking with the netball, would you be able to give us your thoughts on how having mixed teams and players aged 16 and under went?
I think it's a winning combination because the girls and boys play apart the whole year. So this is the only time they actually play as one team. There are lots of other opportunities for them to play on girls only or boys only teams. So why not have a dedicated tournament just for mixed teams, which is this one. The only one in India's calendar, really. It builds cooperation between the girls and boys, and the purpose that we get them to play netball is really to make them work together and address certain social issues. So that will remain. I think we would rather have this, as I spoke earlier also, as a mixed teams tournament rather than girls and boys playing separately in separate categories. So it stayed this way. We had a few girls-only teams, but they actually played in the main draw for a separate prize. A bit like the situation we find with the cup, bowl, and plate system in rugby and sometimes in netball. We had them play for a girls-only trophy, but they played within the main draw.
You say overcoming social issues, Aditya, and we've spoken about this before. I think the tournament just shows what sport can do to sort of bridge that gap, because unfortunately, in some ways, the development with social issues and that sort of thing in India is a little bit behind to the rest of the world. So hopefully having this netball tournament continually will act as a driver for change in those areas. Yeah,
I think it works in a very subtle manner. They don't really realize when this is just a weekend that is different from general life. Girls and boys don't really interact that much as I wish they would. But they kind of, those barriers and those sort of breakdown and those bridges get created that you mentioned. And I think it's a positive way to move forward. It's subtle, and we don't really push it. We don't mention anything during the week, or rather the weekend that we play together. But yes, they go home with a slightly different opinion about how things should be, and it builds up a new spirit of cooperation. I think it is a positive aspect of their learning, really. It's a part of the educational process.
And just sticking with the teams, Are you looking to expand the number of teams competing across a wider range of age groups and so on?
Yes, actually, what you suggest is quite interesting because we could have an under 14 and under 12 and under 16. We could actually have three different age categories and we could therefore have more teams play. At the moment, probably we would try to just increase the teams in the same category, which is under 16. This year we had 10 and maybe the coming year that is, we'll have 12. I would try for 16 though. I think 16 is something really that is the magical number because we can then have 4 pools rather than just have the 2 pools. But yes, I would think that under 12, under 14, under 16 is the way forward in future editions. Maybe not the immediate next edition, but in future editions.
You were quite happy about the increased media coverage in the lead up to the tournament last time we spoke, Aditya. Did a number of media outlets end up coming through with their promises, and did you get pretty good media coverage of the tournament?
To answer your question, in the mainstream media, we were completely ignored. We had an issue this year wherein we clashed with the general elections, which is the major thing that happened in May of this year over here. India is the largest democracy in the world, so the circus of having elections takes over every other news item. And of course, then we have competitors like cricket and whatnot going on. But the story of our tournament got picked up by the people that really matter, which is people like Sports for Development based programs around the world. We got a lot of interest from New Zealand, Australia, and England. People interested in kind of passing on the story and speaking about it. There is a website called sportanddev.org. They picked up the story and they really gave us a lot of exposure, which I think is good in the long run for us. But yes, main media or rather mainstream media, no coverage whatsoever. And I wouldn't say that really affected us. Perhaps it's good in the long run.
Do you think as the tournament expands that there'll be more chance of the mainstream media outlets in India picking up the story?
Yes, I think there is it because what usually happens is at the tipping point. We don't have a major, say, soft drinks sponsor like Coca-Cola or someone that would, of course, help us be spoken about more. But we do have sports for development sponsors who are in themselves quite famous. So perhaps that is an aspect that would help us reach out further and the media would pick up the story. Really, it's all about the media picking up the story rather than us pushing it.
We talk about a lack of mainstream media and sponsorship interest, Aditya, but at the same time too, maybe going down more that sport and development path rather than looking to commercialise it might be a way forward, considering how behind netball is in development compared to other parts of the world like here in Australia and New Zealand. And I don't say that negatively either.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't even, when you look at netball worldwide, there are so many different categories that come and you've got the top 4, then you've got the next 4, then you have the Asian scene, then you have somewhere India. India is now preparing for the next Asian championships and, it's a fact, our development is way, way behind any other country that would have aspirations to go forward in netball. Going towards the sports of development, idea as the One Nation is a much better way than just going for the mainstream media. So I agree with you there. If we keep concentrating on what we're strong at and why we do this tournament, we are liable to be far more successful than just if we go in as a normal tournament trying to get some mainstream media exposure.
And just speaking of the tournament, in terms of venue, are you looking to hold the tournament in the same place again next year and beyond?
Well, I would like the tournament to finally travel. Originally, we were always talking about it traveling around India and getting the children and the players, that is, to see new parts of the country and visit each other. We have done the tournament at the same venue 2 years running. If we can't make it travel this year, we will, of course, host it at the same venue, but I would still try my best to get it to move to a new venue this year because it would be far more interesting and it would be living up to its initial idea, which was to have a traveling tournament rather than just have it in one place. We already have another tournament actually that we do in the winter that is going to always be in the same place. It's called the Sampark Netball Cup. It follows similar concepts, but it remains static in that it's played always in Sampark. So we've got one in winter and the other one that is the One Nation in summer.
maybe having the One Nation one, like you say, having traveling it means that more and more people would be exposed to netball, and not just children, but at the same time too, introducing the sport to adults. You know, they might want to come along and watch and go, oh, that's a pretty good sport. I might want to give that a go later on. You know, Aditya?
Absolutely, I agree. And I would love going into lesser known venues, smaller cities, townships, even villages. It doesn't matter. You don't need to hold it in the biggest city or have lots of people turn up. You can have locals turn up, and actually the game gets more and more popular and new people join in of any and every age. I agree completely with you there.
And just before we wrap up, are there any sponsors of the tournament that you would like to thank on there?
Definitely. I think the 2 editions that we've had so far wouldn't have been possible without the NAS Foundation's Gold Program. They've given us all the volunteers that make it possible. There's the contest school which has hosted both the editions so far. The first edition was powered, I would say. The main sponsor was ASOP, which is the Australian Sports Outreach Program. And this year, the second edition was sponsored by Women Win, which is very, very impactful program based in Amsterdam. I really thank these sponsors because without them it just wouldn't be possible, and they share our dreams and they keep working the year around to have this program and this tournament happen every summer. So I think Women Win would probably be with us this year as well, the coming year, as the ASA program is now winding down in India, and other sponsors could join us. We're pretty fine. I think the model, the way it works, is very lean. And we try to do the most we can with the least we have, and it's brilliant. And I wouldn't name names here, I think would be out of place, but if any one of our volunteers would listen into this show, I really thank them very much for whatever they've done. A big thank you for that.
And you mentioned the Women Win program, Aditya. That's obviously, I believe, something to do with driving positive role models for women using sport as a vehicle for that, is it? Or what's that all about?
Yes, absolutely. Women Win works around the world with various organizations in partnership. They partner NAS Foundation here in India for the Gold Program, and they build up funding, they build up systems and a methodology to actually deliver a sustained program. So the One Nation is sort of an adjunct to this program. We added it on, and it works. What was brilliant this year, actually, Ben, was the fact that we used it as a training program for these young volunteers that come from within the program. First they are players, then they become trainees, and eventually they themselves deliver the program. A lot of, actually the terminology could be community sports coach is one way to put it, or coaches training coaches. So we've actually have children becoming coaches and mentors to their own new batch coming in, and they just were brilliant and deliver this program. Most of my job, and Vivek, that is from the NAS Foundation, just took a step back and had a look that everything was running smoothly. But basically, these young kids run the show. Quite amazing. And Women Win is pivotal in streamlining and developing systems for these young people to live up to their potential, really. So Women Win works in other parts of the world, including Africa and Asia, of course, with other sports and other partners. But in India, in our context, it's Netball and the NAS Foundation.
Well, thank you very much for joining us in the studio. Do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
Well, I'm looking forward to the Asian Championships. India gets its very rare exposure to international netball in September, first and second week. And I would like to share the usual complaint that I have that Indian netball is not developing fast enough. But I believe a lot of children and a lot of young players and even older players are playing with all their hearts out there. And it's dark days, as I keep telling you in previous shows, but there's always a little ray of sunshine that might just poke through the clouds. I don't know. Well, we'll see. We try to do what we can, but I think that there needs to be a little attitude shift or a paradigm shift for things to really move forward. But a great sport, netball, as always, and I think it could really have paid rich dividends for India in many ways, socially and, of course, in sports terms.
Well, thank you very much for joining us in the studio today.
Thanks, Ben, and thanks, Luke, of course.
Thanks, Aditya. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to the 3 Feet Radio Show with Ben Carbonaro and Luke Herbert. Tune in next time for more special guests and netball commentary exclusively on YouTube.